There we go. Happy Friday.
How are we doing today, buddy? Good to see you, Logan.
Good to see you too. Hey, hang on a second. There we go. I had some feedback for a second. You're good. Hey,
All right.
Friday, everyone. We made it. Huzzah. The weekend is here. And Jeremy's case, he literally survived. Good to have you, man.
Hey, it's only the fourth time, buddy. It's only the fourth time. I think I get a free sandwich or something by now.
Oh, my gosh. Hey, so for those of you who don't already know, this is Jeremy Cullen with Highwire Networks. Jeremy, why don't you take 30 seconds to introduce yourself, sir?
Appreciate you, Logan. Jeremy Cullen, a major account manager here at Highwire Networks, focused on our Overwatch side, really helping our partners like Tabernacle help reduce risk for the end customers in any way possible and align our efforts with them, and we're a complete channel-only company.
Awesome. Hey, so we're here to talk about the big news this week. And you know, we can take this slow or fast, but unless you've been living under a rock, you've heard about the following headline. MGM Resorts shuts down its IT systems after a cyber attack, is today's headline off of bleepingcomputer.com. And to be clear, when we say IT network, we really mean just the whole business, right? Like slot machines are down.
Yeah, can't check in, reservation, loyalty points, nothing.
You can't even beep into your hotel room. I'm reading stories online and people like go up to their cards. So for those of you who didn't know, I was just in the Strip last month. I was at DEF CON. Love the DEF CON community. You know, it's a weird and amazing thing. But literally, if you don't know, the hotels are right above the slot machines, right? Like you have to walk through the slot machines just to get to your room. So we're talking basically the whole building is just a big ornament right now. That's what I read when I read through this. Would you agree with that?
Absolutely, absolutely. So I got a question for you. Did you take your burner phone with you? That was the whole thing. Everybody recommended that.
So I actually ran into a dude I know, and I didn't know he was going, which just so it's kind of cool, right? Like, oh, hey, halfway around the world. Nice to see you, sir. But he brought a burner phone, and it just made his life miserable because all the stuff he wanted to do, like, I want to take this picture. I want to go do this, right? Let's scan this QR code, put this app in. Couldn't do hardly anything. It is not worth it to take a burner phone. I never got the joke. Just put your phone in airplane mode, I guess.
Yeah, absolutely.
But back to the conversation real quick. So you were telling me some thoughts even before we got on here. For those of you who weren't aware, this is one of two stories we're going to be talking about. MGM made the headline, but sort of under the radar almost. We found out in the last couple of days that there was another big casino on the Strip, Caesars, and they got hit too. They didn't walk away or they didn't shut down. They just paid out. And do you remember the figure? How much they paid?
They got a big discount. So instead of paying the $30 million that they asked, they negotiated and paid a whopping $15 million. Said, here you go. We need to get back operationalized, and they got that. Now, some in our community say you should never pay, but I think it's an individual situation on what they think is best for their business. And you have that kind of money sitting around, and apparently they do. So allegedly in their, actually for sure, in their 8K filings, they said this will not impact our bottom line. That's crazy.
So here's my next question for you. What's the likelihood that they're going to get targeted again?
Very likelihood, right? They're a good customer, right?
The criminals just made $15 million payday.
Right. And if it's not this Roasted Octopus group, it's probably going to be somebody else.
Roasted Octopus. I love I will give props to the gangs that make these names up. Like they have some of the coolest names. I think my favorite was 2 months ago. The one that was going to the news. Their name was Clop. Clop. That was the name. I'm like,
that's interesting. I wonder how they came up with
that. Like, okay. But no, I mean, so looking at this headline again, we were just talking about MGM. I mean, there's a lot of speculation, and we don't have a lot of hard facts, but there's a lot of speculation here at them being down. This might be part of the plan for them, at least partially, in that, you know, they're shutting down to prevent further damage. We do know they have refused at this time to deal with the criminals, MGM, we're talking about right now. So as far as we're aware, they haven't paid out, right? They're not paying at this time.
Not that we've seen as of yet, no. So it's going to be very interesting. I'm actually heading out to Vegas next week to go watch the Steelers hopefully win against the Raiders. That's a different story, different cast, if you would. But yeah, I'm excited to go by MGM just to see where they're at that moment.
You're going to go in. They're going to give you like a complimentary cocktail, just make you stay in there.
Yeah, stay. Give away free rooms, anything you can. Here's a key. So here's an old school legacy key so you can get in your room.
Well, that's the running joke of Vegas, right? Like, for those of you who've never been to the Strip, hotels are super cheap. Like, probably some of the cheapest in the country. And you're like, wow, this must be really, you know, not an expensive place. No, it absolutely is the most expensive place you will ever go. It's a money pit because all the stuff you can do costs money. So
Yeah.
that's my question to you. How much of you think they're losing? I mean, we're going to only do estimates here, but we're talking about their main money funnel is just down, right? So it's not just the downtime, but also the customers that are there, the employees that are being paid. I mean, the costs got to be adding up, right?
You're talking about billion-dollar companies, right? So if
Wow.
you try to reverse engineer that, how much you're losing per hour, especially during the days or on the weekend that's coming up, on the slot machines and everything else, the high rollers, the luxury.
Oh, I didn't even think about the high rollers. I don't even know if there's like an event this week. I didn't check that.
Yeah. So it's in crazy. And to your point, it's not cheap because me and my uncle, my two uncles and my cousin, we were going to watch the game. We're like, oh, Vegas will be a cheap place to go to see the game. It's the most expensive place to go watch the NFL game. Dumb me. But anyway.
I had somebody explain to me he felt that Vegas was like a perfect synology when is what do you call it a symbol of a funnel when it comes to money,
Right.
in that you put money in and it comes out just as quick, and that's the whole business model of Vegas is they spend a lot of money, they make a lot of money, and it just keeps going in and out, in and out, in and out. I think the thing that kind of hit me is when I sat down at a Denny's at 10 o'clock in the morning with me and another guy, and the Denny's breakfast was $82 for like a pancake, like nothing crazy in it, just like a pancake and like a, what do you call it, the Denny's Grand Slam or whatever. I was like, this place is dumb.
Yeah, it is nuts. It is nuts. It's definitely a place you only want to go for a couple of days and come back for sure.
Ooh. Well, I mean, so we're talking about big MGM, right? And one of the things that I think it's kind of interesting is casinos. They're notorious for security, like traditional concept of security, right? Like we have so many different movies about why the house always wins. You ever watch 21?
Yes, I've watched 21 Casino and a couple other ones. I love those
Oh
stories.
my gosh, Ocean's 11, 21. I
Yeah.
mean, you got so much pop cultural reference here. It's like they take security seriously, and it's a well-earned reputation, right? Like I was in that casino. I was staying at Plaza Hotel, right, right not off the strip, but off a little ways, and literally I must have counted 30 cameras just staring me walking to the main floor. So that's a well-earned reputation. What do you think their cybersecurity looks like here?
I think they got it pretty nailed down, but unfortunately, if you have somebody like a blackjack dealer knowingly or unknowingly tipping somebody off, that violates all the defense places put in place. And isn't that kind of what happened to what we understand with Caesars?
Yeah, so we don't know a whole lot about MGM. Is it MGM or Caesar? It was Caesars, right? They got the phone call. Was that what we're talking about? Okay.
Yeah. So
Yeah,
MGM is still to be determined as far as what really happened. They're a little slow in releasing that, probably because they're still trying to figure out whether or not to burn and rebuild or just to pay, right? You know, that's always the biggest debate at that point in time. Go ahead.
Go ahead.
No, I was going to say, just to ask you, what did we hear about what Caesars happened? I mean, from our understanding, that UNC 3944 group, the Roasted Octopus, they were the same groups behind both of them, right? They attacked both of them within days.
Yeah, I mean, as far as we can tell, it literally was. So first off, what's kind of unique about this group, I don't know if it's unique, but it's different for them, is they're, as far as we can tell, native English speakers. And it literally was a phone call. They impersonated a relevant party to, I believe it was Caesars Help Desk, their support team. And they managed through that interaction, that 10-minute phone call was the exact thing they're bragging about, allegedly online. They managed to gain full access and bypass all the security of Caesars. So 10 minutes. Took them 10 minutes on a phone call with a good English. That's
all
crazy.
they did. Looked up somebody's LinkedIn profile, looked up Logan, called in and say, hey, I'm remote. I can't get my MFA token or whatever they asked for.
Reset my MFA or whatever.
Password, right? And then they're in. And the crazy thing is, it sounds like dwell time in this was extremely short. This was not something where it was an initial access broker. They sold it off. Another bad actor came in. They ransomware, split the profits with everybody. This is extremely targeted. And as soon as they got in, they knew exactly what they were going to do. As far as what they did at Caesars, I'm leaning to probably believing it was probably the more same thing with MGM, right?
Yeah.
Once they got in, what did they attack?
Well, you missed the 2 weeks ago episode when that was the exact topic. Me and Matt Gersh from Procivity were talking about was dwell time is going down across the board. It's not just here. And I think it just indicates here they're just getting more efficient. Like if you're looking at all the stats, technically the frequency of cyber attacks is slightly diminishing by like 5%, but the payouts have gone up like 3x. Like the amount of money they make on their breaches. And I think that's pretty self-explanatory here. I mean, they were efficient. 10 minutes in and out, dwell time was minimal, and $15 million next thing you know.
So I got my own opinion, but why do you think they're reducing the amount of dwell time?
I think it's because people are Two things. I think one, they have more targets than they can deal with at the moment, so they're willing.
Mhm.
They want to find the easiest payday, path of least resistance. And two, I think there is some basic security technologies in place that are starting to become more ubiquitous. People are waking up. So things like, hey, I need to go actually get an EDR, for example, like beyond just putting Norton antivirus on my computer. I need to go get an EDR. I
Right.
need to have a backup of some sort, right? Like that kind of stuff is finally making its way out into the mainstream business community, and people are waking up and saying, okay, this is a need. So they don't want to risk it. That's my best thing I can think of. They don't want to risk they make a mistake and all their hard work gets washed up.
100%. I completely agree because there's a lot of studies out there, and I apologize for not having the source right in front of me. More focused on this one. But traditionally speaking, over the last 5 to 10 years, enterprises and smaller and medium companies have been spending 75% of their security budget on prevention.
Yep.
And to your point, ransomware attacks have been steadily going up over the years, right? So we
Yep.
have to get better at detecting and response. And that's your point. We're getting better at it. So they're blocking and tackling and getting more aggressive at it so they can still monetize their efforts as well.
I think we're going to move into a high frequency environment in the coming years, and that's going to be the trend. You're not going to have a ton of time from detection to when you have to make a decision. That's both a good thing and a bad thing. And what I mean by that is they're going to have to be way more aggressive, and you have a better shot at detection, which is great. But it means that when you detect an attacker, the amount of time you have to make a good business decision and go forward, that's going to keep dwindling down, because the longer you wait, the more likely they're going to pull a trigger on an actual attack. And I don't think that's necessarily a good thing, because the business community as a whole doesn't always know how to respond properly when they get a cyber attack. Like a lot of people think it's rip and replace, or in MGM's case, right? Like, why did they shut down? Why would they lose all that money? Well, we know from some auxiliary sources, they have a security team, they have a CISO. Yeah. I'm sure they're operating under advisement of this is the path that was going to cause us the least damage. We need to shut it all down.
Yeah, and a lot of it still, we have to wait till everything comes out. But it is impressive that one, they probably got an IT admin's account. They didn't have to escalate. They just got it immediately. But they were able to detect all those ESXi servers at the same time.
So right? For context, remember our audience, ESXi. This is the server that runs their core infrastructure. So all the systems they need to run their business, they have all these systems and tools all running off this key tool called ESXi. Just that's a little context there for those of you who didn't know what we're talking about.
Absolutely, absolutely. And that's the interesting thing, is because they weren't able to really detect this weird behavior going on in their environment. They weren't able to isolate it like a fire in a building, right? As soon as the fire lit, the whole thing went up. And that's what's interesting to me. So to be determined on exactly how they went about the attack and what measures were in place and maybe what got through. I mean, we're all on it. We're all on the good fight, right? We all have to make sure we're right all the time. The bad actors, just once. And look, they got $50 million. That was it. It's crazy.
And not to mention most of their initial attack vectors. Now, this one was absolutely a targeted attack, right? Like a phone call picked up, or well, with Caesars, I should say. We don't know how MGM played out yet. But with Caesars, it was accidentally a phone call based on all records, right? Like targeted. They did their research enough to figure out, hey, what's going on? But the honest truth is, there are tools even in the business sphere that automate that kind of stuff all the way up to the phone call. I can start prospecting on LinkedIn right now and look for key candidates all over the place, make myself a list, what their high school background is. And these attackers, they're like we were talking about before, they're getting more and more efficient. They're automating a lot of the old grunt work they used to have to do before they pulled an attack. Generative AI, we talk a lot about that. And one of the key things of generative AI that I'm most afraid of is an attack called spear phishing. I know you're familiar with it, but let me kind of explain for our audience. Spearfish, you all know what a phishing email is, hopefully, the Nigerian prince, or someone's trying to get, I love those. I still get them occasionally, like the dumb ones, but someone's like, oh, hey, my grandma is in the hospital, send me $5,000, right? Most smart business leaders, I think, can 95% of the time recognize a fish. Now they come in so frequently that 5% adds up, but that's a topic not for right now. Spearfish is different. Spearfish is when you do your research on your target. You figure out where they work, where they live, what their position is, where their high school is, contacts that they might be associated with or friends with. You use social media, you look on the dark web, you put this profile together, and you craft a series of emails that uniquely make sense to that target that they're more likely to trust. You impersonate a third party that they trust already. Great one of that we've been seeing a lot of contractors, right? Like a hacker will bust into a contractor's email servers, send an email impersonating the contractor and divert funds. That's a great one. And with generative AI, that stuff is getting easier and easier to write. You can just feed it to an AI bot and it can write all kinds of stuff that's closer than what you used to be able to do.
Absolutely. Yeah. It's a scary world out there, and we all have to do the best we can because, as mentioned earlier, there's not too many companies outside of Nevada that can afford to pay $15 million and not go out of business.
No.
I mean, that's scary. You're talking about people's livelihood. You're talking about them taking care of their family. It's unfortunate.
I think a lot of people too will say, well, they're so big, right? And how does this apply to me? Because I mean, MGM, Caesars, they are absolutely ginormous. Nobody's disputing that. They are multi-billion-dollar businesses each. But the problem becomes is they're also one of the most, we talked about before, security-focused businesses, right? They're casinos. Security is their livelihood. They have to be on top of that. And even such a security-focused industry, right? I don't think, for the most part, that they have not invested. I think they've invested in cybersecurity, at least to a reasonable amount. I don't think this is a lack of investment. I think this is just showing it doesn't matter how prepared you are or how focused you are. Prevention is just not in the vocabulary anymore.
Yeah, it's those unknown unknowns are the reasons why we lose wars and battles, right? And unfortunately, this feel bad. It's unfortunate, but whoever gave out those credentials, man,
I was reading a post on LinkedIn and somebody framed it, and I think I'm going to steal this. So this is not from me, but I liked how I frame it. It's like replace prevent with protect, mitigate, and recover. You need to replace that one word prevent with protect, mitigate, and recover. That's the new mantra going forward when it comes to cybersecurity.
Right. Got to be resilient. Got to be resilient. Got to protect those digital assets. That's for sure.
Oh, wow. Well, my name is Logan Edmonds. Once again, guys, I'm with Tabernacle Technology Solutions. I'm going to take a quick sponsor break of myself as the sponsor. If you see this QR code up in the screen, we are offering a special offer. My side, above my head. We are offering a special offer for anybody who's tuning in today, a free 15-minute session with one of our security engineers for a cyber strategy session. Yeah, normally we're about $225 an hour, so that's got some value there, and that's free of charge, no obligations, nothing required except an email address and a place to reach out to you at, time and a place. So if you're interested, go ahead and scan the QR code today. Again, that's a free 15-minute cyber strategy session. So what do you think, and this is probably the final part of our topic today, Jeremy, and I want to hear your thoughts. What's MGM's path forward? Right? Like, we know they're shut down right now. We know there's not a whole lot of disclosure. We're going to go into the realm of conjecture here now because we don't know for sure. So everything we say, disclaimer, realm of conjecture. We're just conjecturing here. But what do you think is going to happen going forward? Now that what's this look like for MGM?
Yeah, for a company of that size, and really for any company, that they should have some type of cybersecurity insurance in place. So, it's probably safe to assume, again, that they contacted that company. They've got some forensic, some incident response people on site almost immediately. They're trying to determine what's the best path forward to get everything resolved, right? So what do you think? They're looking at, do we burn and rebuild? That could be tough for them. I mean, how long would that take? What kind of effort? And the amount of money that they're losing per hour, who knows? Maybe they're trying to negotiate to get them down as far as possible. Maybe they're already trying to rebuild and isolate what the issue is. We're not sure.
Hardware?
What's that?
You think you're going to have to replace some hardware in this environment?
Possibly, if not rebuild. I mean, I know I saw a video, I believe it was for MGM, that all their slot machines are still down.
Yeah, I know as of 19 hours ago, I think was the last, the AP put out a confirmed statement saying they're still mostly down. There's a few small things that come back up, I think I was reading, but nothing the major stuff's still down.
That's right. And I think with MGM, you can still use like their app. They're trying to get everybody to use that for reservations and to book rooms and to everything else. So not all systems are down, but their money-making systems are down. So that's key. Outside of those things, bringing an IR team in and trying to figure out, what do you think they're trying to do? What's your thoughts?
I think so. The insurance is always a long-term game, right? And I know we work with this world a lot, but for our listeners who've never had the displeasure of having to deal with cyber insurance, it's a pretty long process. I mean, you don't get your money very quick, even if you're a small business, let alone a big one like MGM. There's usually a few months of post-mortem with the forensics team. There's a couple of attorneys and breach coaches involved, minimum. There has to be a full workup, writing, regulatory work, legal work. I mean, we're talking like 6 months at a minimum for any kind of payout. Usually In MGM's case, that kind of money, I wouldn't be surprised they don't see any money pay out for at least a year. So there's that. I hope, I would hope. So their biggest problem right now, and if you ever heard the story of Saudi Aramco, right? Like about for those of you who don't know, about 10 years ago, a big oil company called Saudi Aramco was ransomware, or they were an early version of ransomware. All their computers were borked. And what Saudi Aramco had to do, and I'm dating myself a little bit here, but they had to buy 30,000 hard drives because the only way they could come back up online was to replace the hard drives on every single computer they had. It actually caused the shortage. I don't think you can do that without serious legal liability nowadays because there's so much like post-mortem disclosures you have to do with forensics. Like you can't just go out and, even if they have the money, which I'm sure they do, they go out and buy new hardware, new equipment, new computers. What do you do with the old equipment, right? You're going to hang on to it for a certain amount of time.
I don't even know if they could source that amount of hardware that they have.
They're in the middle of the desert. Like the costs alone, like forget money, like the human costs, the logistic, all that out there in one go, I have to assume is pretty high.
Yeah, you're not just replacing a small LAN or even a bigger one with 1,000 nodes. I mean, they have so many things in their environment. Everything's smart in their environment. So
And I think it also depends too on how they're. I don't know this, right? But like from a technical standpoint, is each slot machine its own computer? Are they virtualized and pointing to like a server? How do it, like what does their environment look like? Because if they encrypted the slot machines in ransomware, I have to assume you're going to have to go around to each of those slot machines bare minimum and set them up from scratch. That's not an insignificant thing. You're going to have to make a copy of the encrypted system somehow for the law enforcement to go through whenever they get around to it. I mean, there's just, I'm sitting here and this is giving me the sweats.
Yeah.
About the next 6 months for these guys.
I would not want to be on either one of those IT teams right now. I'm sure they haven't slept in a while, and that's got to be extremely frustrating. Yeah, as far as your question, I imagine it's a little bit of hybrid. Like there is some operating system power on each slot machine so it can run everything, the compute power that's required. But it's got to be checking back in with the database on the back end for the progressive jackpots and everything else that are going on. What do you think?
I mean, yeah. And the other thing there's just, I don't know enough about the casino business. That's what I'm realizing right now as I'm talking, right? Like I'm just thinking like from the IT side of things, right? And the technical side of things, but from the business side of things, right? Like how they run their business, like what the implications of losing all that history, for example, on the casino
for
side
auditing, for financial purposes. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, they're heavily audited and there's tax purposes. The IRS is probably going to get interested here on the payouts and they're going to have to provide stuff. I mean, this is going to cause 5 years, 6 years. And the more I think about this of just headaches of this is going to take the rest of their career is going to be dedicated to this. There's somebody out there, the rest of their legal career or financial career is just going to be dedicated to this thing.
Sure. You just brought up a good point. Do you know if any personal information from their consumers have been exploited out as far as data leaving their premises?
So we have seen incident before of this happening with Caesars. This is actually their second breach. Back in 2020, they were forced to admit because some hackers dumped it on the dark web that they lost over, I think, let's see, it's on this article actually. I saw somewhere 10 million records, but I'm not seeing it readily on this article. But there it is. Hackers stole more than 10 million customer records. So they were forced to admit back in 2020 that they were collecting through their mobile app, I believe it was, date of births, email addresses, phone numbers, physical addresses, and all that stuff was just floating on dark web forums. Anybody could click it and look at it. And so if the app's down and the website's down and the hotels are down, I'm going to make an assumption here, and I don't know if it's 100% accurate, that whatever place they were storing this information probably was impacted as well. So yeah, I think that's a realistic risk right now.
So two other things there, right? They're not back up yet. So apparently, allegedly, again, we're assuming a lot of things here, guys. Their backups are down.
Yeah. Or they can't restore for some reason. Maybe they managed to corrupt the backups to the point where there's enough data that lost it would cost them more harm than good.
So what about all those big ballers, the all-stars, the athletes, everything else that have a line of credit with them? Did they lose all that too?
You got to assume they have that backed up in triplicate, but yeah, that's a risk. That's the other thing too, right? Like, so we haven't even talked about reputational implications, right?
Right.
So this has always been my philosophy with most people. Historically speaking, if you can get through the first 6 months of a data breach, long term, your reputation should mostly recover.
Right.
It seems like if you have the cash flow to survive that. But those 6 months right after data breach, they're a bit of a living nightmare for most businesses. Like even if you have the money to survive it, like people don't want to do business with you. So casinos run on trust, right? Like we're talking about the high ballers, we're talking about, repeat customers, people who go there for a good time thinking they can trust them, like, they feel secure in some way. How's this going to impact them?
It's going to be very interesting. So a question I just thought of and I should have looked into a little bit. Did it shut down the water show?
Ooh, I don't know about that.
Yeah, that's Bellagio. Sorry, I'm getting mixed up.
You're getting the Bellagio. Who knows,
Yeah.
I mean, they're right next door to each other. Caesars, MGM, the Bellagio. Oh my gosh, I hope the Bellagio is not impacted. The Venetian, the guy at the gondola can't move because there's actually a motor in the boat that doesn't.
Right. Tell you, I can't wait to go by both these resorts next week to see what's going on.
Vegas is something. I'm not. I'll go back probably for DEF CON, but I've been once, and I feel like if I had choice, it'd be enough.
Sorry, I think one of my cats just tried to break out or something. I'll figure it out in a minute.
Oh, you're good. Well, I think we're heading up towards the end of the half hour of the show. Jeremy, real quick, takeaway, right? One key takeaway that the average person needs to take away from this incident. How does MGM and Caesars having massive cyberware impact the average person? Go.
Trust but verify. I don't care if Logan calls me up and it shows up as his number. I need to make sure I verify that he's calling. Maybe call him back. Maybe try a couple forms of communication. We have to train our frontline employees a lot better, whether it's our help desk or our NOC or our SOC IT staff, or whether it's the operator at the front desk. We have to continue doing that. This is a blocking and tackling effort. We can't set and forget it. You don't train them once a year. This is an ongoing training effort. That's my biggest takeaway from what we know right now. And of course, defense in depth. But again, we don't know if there's significant neglect in either one of these situations because we don't understand the tactics that they use to escalate the entire thing that quickly. What's your thoughts on it, buddy?
First thing comes to mind, Murphy's Law. You familiar with Murphy's Law?
Oh, yeah.
What can go wrong will go wrong. And you as a person, and if you're in a business leadership position, both professionally and personally, you need to assume at some point you're going to be impacted by this. If not this attack, some attack, right? And make preparations. Make preparations. Personally, I'm tell every single person I talk to, just for these kind of reasons. If someone's handling my information I don't know about and they get hacked, freeze your credit first off. Freeze your credit. That in this day and age, you should not have your credit unfrozen extended period of time. Just go freeze your credit.
Absolutely. I was talking to somebody earlier about that today as well. If you're not sure, freeze everything.
Go freeze your credit. Personally, that's what you need to do right now. From a professional standpoint, I think what you're talking about is absolutely key. You need to assume that sooner or later, one of your employees are going to get popped, and they're going to have enough access to really hurt you. You need to make preparations for that, whether that's through training. And one of the things that we talk about is phishing-resistant login methods. That is a bit of a technical lift, but I think it's becoming more and more evident. If they had some kind of phishing-resistant and login method, they might have been able to spare this. But in this case, it looks like they didn't. So, yeah,
I can't wait to see the details. Maybe we can loop back around and do a little bit more forensic studies.
And 3 years from now, when it finally comes out in court discovery, we'll finally know what happened.
What do you think? 18 months?
I don't. What was it? The ransomware group that just got everything in court discovery. They finally had the ruling for the insurance. One that Russia allegedly did. What was the big ransomware? 2018, 2017. Why am I blanking on the name?
Yeah, I'm drawing a blank right now. There's the volume is just unreal.
It affected a lot. Merck, the shipping company, was in court about it. Yeah. That one took 5 years for it to play out fully. So, and that was for $30 million in damages.
Right. And by that time, there's going to be another bank, right, that comes out, or another casino or some other big player that gets hit, right? So it almost gets lost in the wash.
Awesome. All right. Well, guys, we're at the end of our half-hour show. Once again, my name is Logan Edmonds, CEO of Tabernacle Technology Solutions. I'm joined with my partner, Jeremy Cullen, over at Highwire Networks. Stay safe out there. And if you want to have a more educated discussion about this topic and talk about how it relates to you personally, like I said, we're offering a free 15-minute session with our cybersecurity engineers just to chat with you. Use it. Scan that QR code. Please, please, please utilize our knowledge. Thank you so much, everyone.
Take advantage of it, guys. Have a good weekend and be safe. Trust but verify.
Trust but verify.